and most recently was a special assistant to President on domestic policy and the Domestic Policy Council. He passed away early Monday morning, and his family is devastated, to be honest. They're devastated. A couple of the family members are here, but they're devastated. He was a great person, great, brilliant writer, and so he will be very greatly missed. And Tony is looking down on us right now, and he was so proud of what he did and his heritage. He was so proud of his heritage. So I want to thank him and his family for the incredible job they did. Once again, let me wish everyone a very happy St. Patrick's Day. And with that, I would like to ask Taoiseach Martin to say a few words. He's a very, very special man in Ireland. As you probably know, he's a very popular guy, which is not easy in Ireland. And it's an honor to have both Mary and Michael here with us, because we really, we've gotten to know each other very well, and they're great people. Thank you very much, everybody.
President Trump, distinguished guests, it is a singular honour to represent the people of Ireland as we gather to celebrate St. Patrick's Day. The time-honoured tradition of the Shamrock Bowl ceremony is an important moment to reflect upon the relationship between our two countries. Mr. President, as you said on an earlier St. Patrick's Day, and I quote, "Through trial and triumph, ups and downs, thick and thin, the extraordinary Irish people have stood by America's side, and America will always stand by theirs." Our peoples have stood side by side for a long time, and next year the United States marks the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. Of the 56 signatories of that historic document, 3 were born on the island of Ireland, and many others were of Irish descent. Since then, Irish America has been at the heart of shaping this great nation. The ideals of liberty, democracy, and equality of opportunity forged in this country did much to inspire Irish independence. Our histories are interconnected because our people are interconnected. Today, as the President has said, more than 30 million people claim Irish ancestry in the United States. Those who came to America seeking refuge from poverty and hunger at home worked hard. They helped build the railroads that connected this country and the skylines that defined it. Others served their communities and their adopted home as firefighters, teachers, nurses, doctors, policemen, and soldiers. Irish people can now be found in almost every industry and community across the United States. Mr. President, Irish Americans have lived the American dream. I saw that for myself earlier this week in the great state of Texas, where I met Governor Greg Abbott, attended South by Southwest, and learned about exciting economic opportunities that abound in the Lone Star State. I met with Texan-based companies using Ireland as a gateway into the European market, as well as the Irish companies investing in and buying from Texas. All across the United States, men and women go to work every morning in Irish-owned companies. These companies play a key role in the US economy, operating in every sector, in every state. Some of your great American manufacturing companies count Irish buyers as their top client, with order books worth many billions of dollars supporting the jobs of thousands of fantastic American workers. Ireland is now in the top 10 as a source of foreign direct investment in the United States. Not bad for a small island. Ireland likes to trade with the United States, and the United States likes to do business with Ireland because we are strong and reliable partners. Mr. President, let's do even more and better together. In the past, Irish labourers came to help build the new republic, the beacon on the hill. They even built this beautiful White House. They built the roads and the railroads that made this mighty union possible. Today, Irish companies are building the infrastructure connecting the United States in the 21st century. Throughout our great shared history, Ireland has played a role in bringing America closer. In doing so, we've been proud to help make this country great. Mr. President, American companies continue to invest in Ireland, where our access to the European market, talented workforce and consistent and stable business environment makes us one of the best places in the world to do business. And just like our peoples and cultures, our economies are deeply interconnected. Investment in Ireland helps American companies sell their products across the world. Our island is home to a people with an outward perspective, generations of whom have looked to the United States for opportunity and inspiration. We've built prosperity through free and fair trade with partners all over the world, and particularly here in these United States. Let us continue to build on that foundation, bringing ever-growing prosperity to both our great peoples. Let us continue to work together to make sure that we maintain that mutually beneficial two-way economic relationship that has allowed innovation and creativity and prosperity to thrive. Mr. President, on St. Patrick's Day in 1981, in this House, President Ronald Reagan spoke of a just and peaceful solution to the conflict in Northern Ireland. And that was the start of an extraordinary journey. 17 years later, after enormous effort and commitment and dialogue and disagreement and sheer perseverance, we signed the Good Friday Agreement. We signed a just and lasting peace into being. And the United States of America was at the very centre of that magical moment of hope and inspiration. Successive presidents, Republican and Democrat, cared enough to put in the late nights, the persuading, the cajoling, the negotiating, the encouraging, the influencing. And Mr. President, 3,720 people were killed in that conflict and close to 50,000 people were injured. In per capita terms, that's many millions of Americans. And just imagine that for a moment in terms of the scale of what happened. It was the support of the United States of America that was essential in bringing that to an end. One of the greatest achievements of American foreign policy, with heartfelt commitment from both sides of the aisle. The story of peace in Ireland is one that we wrote together. We know building peace is a difficult and painstaking task, but when the mighty United States of America puts its shoulder to the wheel, there is no mountain it cannot move. Mr. President, I welcome the unrelenting focus and energy you have brought to the search for peace in Ukraine and in the Middle East since your first days in office. In my view, there is nothing more noble, President, than the pursuit of peace, and this is what you are doing. Ireland is ready to work with you and our international partners to end conflict and especially to bring just, lasting and sustainable peace to the people of Ukraine and the people of the Middle East. Conflict and war hurt the most vulnerable. Too many children in particular have died in Gaza, in Israel, in Sudan, and too many children have been abducted in Ukraine. Let us together never cease to strive for peace, prosperity and opportunity for all the world's children. That would be an extraordinary achievement for the transatlantic relationship and an extraordinary legacy for the ages. Mr. President, County Clare is one of the most beautiful places on this earth. And Doonbeg is one of its finest jewels. One of Ireland's finest poets, and we've had a few, as you know, wrote of the beauty of County Clare along the flaggy shore in September or October, when the wind and the light are working off each other. And Heaney wrote of how Ireland can catch the heart off guard and blow it open. I have been to that part of Clare, and I know that that is true. Mr. President, I hope that we can welcome you to Ireland soon to catch your own heart off guard. You know better than anyone the beauty of Doonbeg, a place that would take anyone's breath away. Gorv míle amahagut, Banachdi na féle Podrig Oruv Galer. Thank you very much indeed, and happy St. Patrick's Day to you all. Thank you. Time-honoured tradition, I'm going to present a bowl of shamrock to President Trump.
All right, folks, you've been watching live here as President Trump meets with the Prime Minister of Ireland, a really warm reception, a reminder in the Prime Minister's speech of the role that America played in bringing peace over, it took 17 years to do it. Started with Reagan, ended with Clinton. I covered it as an AP reporter in Ireland, and the potential that Donald Trump now has to bring peace to Europe in the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. Really poignant moment there. The very common thing when an Irish leader comes to give a pot of shamrocks to the American president. That's been a tradition a long time. Amanda, we were talking about this as we were watching this. There's been a really long line of American presidents with a strong Irish heritage over the last few years. You've got the Kennedys, right? You got Reagan. You've got Clinton, Biden, and Trump.
Yep.
Really rich relationship between the two countries.
Yeah, and you can also throw it back. Something else that he was referencing was the rich history and connection that our country has, particularly during its founding with Irish documents and the influence on our founding documents, but also Irish workers at the start of this country, and of course through yes, absolutely, and of course through the manufacturing boom, and now companies in this country that are led by Irish Americans and are doing very well.
Yeah,
really
and
nice
he made a nice leap from the manufacturing and the railroads to the superhighway, because Ireland is a big high-tech industry now.
It is indeed.
The high-tech industry in Ireland very closely aligned with American big tech right now. Really warm reception, good day for the president all around. This morning inflation came out. It was down more than people expected. That made the markets rally a little bit and got over the tariff hangover, which, by the way, isn't a trade war. It's just a little bit of a hangover on tariffs. Another day where progress is really clear. Russia is in Iran with China, trying to get a deal with Iran. That's a big deal, despite the rhetoric, the mean rhetoric of Iran. There could be something going on there. And Witkoff in Moscow meeting with Putin, and the president potentially talking to Vladimir Putin the next couple of days. Signs all around that maybe that peace that the Irish Prime Minister was talking about might be near at hand.
Yeah, and we're seeing it on all those fronts, and this is something that President Trump ran on was, you started with inflation, cooling inflation, and then moving into the foreign policy realm and just, stopping the killing, whether you're talking about Ukraine and Russia or the Palestinian conflict with Israel. But now we've got this three-headed monster with China and Iran and Russia, and that's something that President Trump is going to be very delicate with, characteristically so.
Yeah, listen, there could be a grand bargain going on, right? Which is there 5 or 6 dimensions to these negotiations going on. We'll have to wait and see, but it is a consequential moment, and we're reminded in just 6 or 7 weeks of the Trump presidency how consequential this presidency has already been. Just
Absolutely.
6, 7 weeks in. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break. And then I think when we come back, we're going to be joined by Congressman Marlin Stutzman from the great state of Indiana. We'll talk about today's developments. We've got an all-congressional lineup for the next hour, so stick around. We'll be right back. Hey folks, we're all human. I don't always eat healthy. I know you don't always eat healthy too. That's why doctors created Field of Greens, a delicious glass of Field of Greens Daily is like nutritional armor for your body. Each fruit and vegetable is doctor selected for a specific health benefit. There's a heart health group, lungs and kidney groups, metabolism, even healthy weight. I love the energy I get with Field of Greens, but most of all, I love the confidence that I have. Even if I have a cheat day, I can enjoy it guilt-free because of Field of Greens. It's the nutrition my body needs daily. And only Field of Greens makes you this better health promise. Your doctor will notice your improved health or you get your money back. Let me get you started with my special discount. I've got you 20% off your first order. Just use the promo code JUSTNEWS at fieldofgreens.com. That's the code JUSTNEWS at fieldofgreens.com.
Welcome back, everybody, to Just the News, No Noise. The funding fight, at least in the House, did not have that much drama attached to it this week, as the latest CR passed pretty easily with only one House Republican voting no. That would be Congressman Thomas Massie. But assuming it gets through the Senate, if it gets through the Senate, it's kind of on shaky ground right now, but can Republicans actually start enshrining spending cuts and MAGA policies into law? Joining us now to discuss all of that and more is Indiana Congressman Marlin Stutzman. Congressman, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being here.
You bet, Amanda. Great to be with you this afternoon.
Great to have you. And, you know, it had pretty easy going through the House, but now it's in the Senate. Chuck Schumer has indicated that they are not going to reach 60 votes to invoke cloture. So is this going to be a Schumer shutdown?
Absolutely. If the Democrats and Chuck Schumer decide not to pass a clean CR, which they have always supported in the past, and this will be a Schumer shutdown. And, you know, we did our work in the House. And actually, you know, it's amazing. I mean, kind of ironic, the fact that we have a smaller majority in the House of Representatives than what they do in the Senate with Republicans. But it's this, you know, cloture vote, as you mentioned, that Democrats are going to have to agree to shut off the debate and to go to a vote. And the fact that they're not willing to do that, you know, is really unfortunate, because I think more than anything, and we saw this in the joint address last week, is they want Trump to fail. They are willing to do anything and everything to make sure that Trump fails. And you know what, ultimately, if Trump fails the American people, it's going to fall back on us as the American people, and we're going to be the ones that pay for it. And I think the Democrats are just continuing to dig themselves into a deep hole.
Yeah, it is remarkable. And there is 20 years of clips of Democrats saying, don't shut down the government, it's the wrong thing to do. How does this play out? How do Republicans make sure they don't get blamed for something where they've done the right thing? I'm sure there's a plan in place to control that narrative and tell the American people what's really going on.
Yeah, well, part of that is just to actually, when we came in this week, to move the vote on to Tuesday, and that way we had time to pass the bill, send it to the Senate, not give them any reason to say that they didn't have enough time or that we jammed them at the last second. They have today, they have tomorrow, and it looks like they're going to run it right up to the end of the clock on Friday. And I know that there may be a Republican or two in the Senate that says that they're going to vote against the bill. But the way I look at this, John, is that we're having to take over this depressed company. I'm a business guy and entrepreneur, and I've had the opportunity to revitalize a company from time to time, and you have to pay all the garbage bills from the past management, and that's what we're having to do with this CR. But at the same time, with the anomalies that are added, we're actually increasing funding to the border, and we're also increasing some funding to our military, but we're flatlining the rest of spending. So this is a much better alternative than having an omnibus or a cromnibus that is filled up with a bunch of items that don't have anything to do with the budgetary process, but like a Christmas tree that we've seen in the past that is passed at the last minute, and we find out how bad it is later. So this is really a win, but at the same time, we want to get past this point so we can get to the budget and really start doing meaningful cuts.
Yeah.
Congressman, do you think that there's an element of this, and you mentioned you're a businessman, the sunk cost fallacy for Democrats? If you look at the polling heading into midterms, it looks like the margin will either stay the same. Democrats could even lose a few more seats, so that margin will be stretched out even further in favor of Republicans. Do you think that there's some type of wonky strategy on the left that says, look, we already know we're not going to win back the Senate in the midterms, so let's just do everything we can to pump the brakes on whatever is happening for President Trump?
It sure seems so. I mean, the fact that they wouldn't even applaud the First Lady or applaud the young African-American boy who is fighting cancer. And they just want to see him fail. And I thought it was kind of funny that President Trump picked up on that throughout the speech and then finally just said, I could cure cancer. I could, do the most incredible thing in the world, and they still wouldn't applaud. But, I still believe that for the most part, Americans want to see Washington work, and they don't want to see spending out of control. You can't have any sort of common sense if you think that it's just okay to spend $36 trillion into debt and not have a plan to get out of it. So I think the majority of Americans are really seeing the difference between the two parties, and that the Democrat Party has no solutions. They continue to, not only just move further to the left, but they're falling off the edge, and they have no plan on how to fix the problems that are facing Americans. And I think that, we're already seeing inflation drop off. The Democrats like to talk about the egg prices. We're seeing egg prices come down. And I come from an ag family, so we know that that's not just because of the cost at the grocery store. It's because of the bird flu that the USDA under the Trump administration has already spent money to address the bird flu problem. And so there's already answers that are being given to problems. And I just am so excited. I was here during the Obama era, and it's night and day. And I'm glad to see Trump doing what he's doing, because he's really fixing problems that we all knew were there, but the Democrats weren't able to fix under Joe Biden.
Yeah, and so I saw you comment on this. I like this announcement. I think a lot of people don't understand this. The Fed cut rates when Joe Biden was president, and mortgage rates went up because they were so worried about how Joe Biden was spending. The Fed hasn't cut rates yet under President Trump, and yet mortgage rates started climbing down the last couple of weeks because they see you and the Congress and the Senate and the President talking about cutting spending. It is a powerful dynamic just to have the conversation about cutting spending, isn't it?
It is. And, I told some of my friends, from being here before, we didn't ever, we passed budgets in the House, but we knew that they wouldn't go anywhere in the Senate, and we knew that President Obama would never agree to it. But, this is actually meaningful cuts. And I'll tell you, John, the fact that we have the Doge team and Elon Musk doing what they're doing at the Treasury, when you take over a business again, but you go straight to the checking accounts and you start seeing where all of the dollars are going out and what's being paid, and you start asking, well, what is that for? And why are we paying for this? And do we need that? That's what Elon Musk and the Doge team are doing. And it's a huge benefit to us as members of Congress, because now we actually have the information and we can point straight, right at these particular items where we can say, this is not what the American people are asking the federal government to spend money on. And the fact that we're looking at all these agencies, the Department of Education looks like we're heading towards finally doing what many of us have wanted to do, and that's to send the education issue back to the states and dissolve the Department of Education. The USAID, we've known that's been fraudulent and a problem for many, many years, but now we have an administration that truly is able to get at it. And the Democrats were able to keep Trump on his heels in the first term, but boy, this time around, he's in a great spot to really fix the federal government and truly help the American people and our country get back on track.
Yeah, great point.
And one of those fixes to the federal government involves combining redundancy and trimming down some of the fat. You've got, USAID that can get folded into the State Department. I want to ask you about the ATF. If not abolishing altogether, it could at least be folded into the FBI, couldn't it?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, that's one of the issues we were talking about today. And, think about the ATF and the history of the ATF. And we really only think about it when there were scandals and problems, whether it was at Waco and what we've seen them do with law-abiding citizens or passing regulations without congressional approval. Again, the Second Amendment is there for a reason to defend our freedoms. And the ATF has just continued to trample on those Second Amendment rights. And I believe that the states, again, are the place where we could administer the law. And I know in Indiana, we are fully capable and willing and excited talking to our legislative members. They want to take on those responsibilities because they're closer to the people, and they're also going to be much more efficient rather than sending our money to Washington and then seeing them take the cream off the top and we get bad service in return. So I think that the ATF, hopefully their days are numbered, but Trump is for sure looking at every agency and finding ways that they can either do better or we can do without.
Yep, trim the fat. I love it. Congressman Marlin Stutzman from the great state of Indiana. Thank you for being here, sir.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. All right, coming up, we're going to have Marsha Blackburn after this break.
Welcome back, America. Hey, just an alert. Tomorrow night on the show, we're going to break a major story. We know those fake email names that Joe Biden was using and a private email address. We sued the National Archives. We got some juicy details you won't believe, or maybe you will believe, what Joe Biden was having sent to his private email. We'll do that tomorrow night. But Amanda, earlier today, when I was out reporting on that, you had an opportunity to sit down with Senator Marsha Blackburn, one of our favorites.
Indeed. Indeed. Yes. You know, she has been relentless in rooting out who those employees were at FEMA who were looking at properties and saying, I think that's a Trump supporter. We should pass them up. So that was one of the things I spoke to her about, among many others. Check it out.
Joining us now, the great senator from the great state of Tennessee, Marsha Blackburn. Senator, thank you so much for being here.
Always delighted to join you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. The pleasure is all ours. And last night, as this CR left the House and went over to the Senate, I believe John characterized Senate Democrats as being in a pickle. I think they would probably use a few choice four-letter words to describe it that we can't use on television. But it seems like they're kind of between a rock and a hard place when it comes to either voting on this or possibly forcing a shutdown, which doesn't look good for them.
And it does not. The Democrats are really wanting to force a shutdown. This would be a Schumer shutdown because they're the ones that are pushing for this. But here is what we do know. The American people gave Donald Trump an overwhelming vote on November 5th. And it was to deal with the border, deal with inflation, get our country back to its standing in the world, deal with crime in our communities, deal with the bureaucracy and reduce what the federal government spends and find a way to get this country back on track and keep it on track. Donald Trump made that promise. That is exactly what he, with a Republican House and Republican Senate, is doing. So the Democrats, again, find themselves on the wrong side of the issue. And the American people are looking at them and their antics and saying to them, you are out of touch with where the American people are. So what do the Democrats do with this? When you've got issues that are basically 80-20 issues, and they are on the wrong side, they're with the 20, not with the 80. And what they are doing is doubling down on bad mistakes. And another really bad mistake they would make would be trying to force a government shutdown.
Well, and Senator, there doesn't seem to be any pivot. I hear the same messaging coming that we've heard since November. I just saw, I think it was this morning, Alyssa Slotkin on The View saying that American voters, Trump voters, are in their angry teenage years, insinuating something about the nature of their vote for President Trump. They're not pivoting.
They are not pivoting, which is so surprising. And you look at comments like that, calling voters immature and uninformed. Well, it is our colleagues across the aisle that we would encourage to listen to what the American people are saying. They don't want a government that is going to spend more of their taxpayer money. They want a government that's going to spend less. They don't want a government that's going to throw the border wide open. They want a secure border. They don't want a government that is saying to criminals, we're going to let you run wild in the streets and we're not going to prosecute you. They want criminals to be picked up. They want them to be detained. They want to see them prosecuted for the crimes that they have committed. And when it comes to the global stage, they don't want a government that is going to be appeasing to other nations. They want a government that is going to stand strong, that will be proud to be the American government and will stand for and defend the American people and our principles. So the Democrats are completely out of step with where the American people are.
Well, and like you said, I mean, so many of these issues are 80-20, 70-30 in some cases. And with respect to the work that DOJ is doing, I think the number is 77% of Americans support rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse. And so much of what he is finding is fraud and money laundering. I mean, to put it in its plainest terms. I know you've got the DOJ Act, which I think is absolutely brilliant, bringing workers back to the office, but not necessarily the office in Washington, D.C. Tell us about it.
Yes, indeed. My DOJ Act is a compilation of bills that I've worked on for years. It is across the board spending cuts so that we not only cut once, we continue every year to have federal agencies take that haircut. It also requires workers coming back to work and promotions to be given on merit, not on longevity of service, but on merit for the job you do. And those federal agencies that are non-defense and non-national security, moving them out of Washington, D.C., so that they're closer to the people that they represent. The U.S. Department of Agriculture should be in the heartland. CMS or HHS should be in an area like Tennessee, where healthcare is one of our primary industries. So that is good common sense. That is what President Donald Trump has brought to the White House. Good common sense. And you're so right about the American people are in favor of the spending reductions that DOJ has made, because they know every time DOJ cuts something, that is less money that is coming out of the taxpayer pocket and being sent to Washington, D.C. for programs that they don't want or programs that have outlived their usefulness. So this is a good thing to be making those reductions. And Amanda, I've got to tell you, I did a telephone town hall the other night. Most of the questions on that telephone town hall were suggestions for other places DOJ should look, or hopeful that DOJ was going to do more, or they were questions about securing the border and protecting our nation's sovereignty. The American people are so pleased with President Trump and the Trump administration and the work that DOJ is doing.
Yeah, I mean, as it turns out, the American people have good ideas, and good on you for listening to those folks. I think that's wonderful. I want to ask you a bit of a philosophical government question, because if you end a lot of these programs that a lot of politicians, and let's face it, so much of what has been revealed so far is attached to Democrat causes, but if you eliminate that cushiness, that lucrative nature of what members of Congress can do with these relationships, if you remove that aspect of the job, does that increase the quality of people who come and work on Capitol Hill?
We know from the work that has been done in some of the states and also in corporations, when you go through a right sizing of a government entity or a corporate entity, and you're paying attention to those efficiencies and how you modernize delivery systems, we know that you are going to get better outcomes. Likewise, with the federal government, if you have people that are using technology and are putting the energy into doing their job, if they're working toward hitting quotas and goals, you're going to get a better product. And this is an issue of leadership. And whether it's a nation or a state, what you want is a strong leadership that can build out a vision, set those goals, and then work with people to achieve those goals. That is what you see happening with President Donald Trump.
Yeah, it's really wonderful to see. And I want to finish up with one question on accountability. We are seeing that is one of the central themes of this administration. We saw those leakers with the DHS or with Border Patrol, those folks getting rooted out and fired and possibly prosecuted. And now we hear that there are 3 FEMA supervisors. And I ask this because in Tennessee, you guys were ravaged by Hurricane Helene as well. Those 3 FEMA supervisors who were attached to the workers who refused to visit Trump supporters' homes. Does that do a lot in the way of rooting out that agency?
Oh, indeed, it does. The response from FEMA was slow and incomplete when it came to dealing with the counties in my state that were hit by Hurricane Helene. It took them a while to get around to us. And we know FEMA is not going to be the first one in. They're going to be the last one in when you have these issues and situations. And for the actions of saying, oh, if it looks like it would be the home of a Trump supporter, just skip it. Don't go there. If it's got a Trump sign, skip it. Don't go there. That is completely unacceptable, and it is unethical. And to push the letter forward to FEMA to hold them to account, to identify the individuals, and for them to take the action to actually fire these individuals. I was pleased to see that response to my letter. My hope is that if there are others that were involved with that decision making, that they will face termination very quickly.
You do so much good for this country. You do so much for the people of Tennessee, that included Senator Marsha Blackburn. Thank you so much for being here. We'll have you back on again very soon.
Delighted to join you. Thank you.
Accountability. She delivers it all the time. She's always requesting it, but this Trump administration has really delivered it. Well, that was a great interview. Great job. That was really fun. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, Congressman Abe Hamadeh is going to be here. He was down at Gitmo taking a look at the illegal aliens being shipped over there. We've got a good exclusive interview with him right after this. Welcome back, America. The border situation changing for the better every day. New statistics released today, only 333 daily apprehensions, an all-time record for America in February, which was the first full month of the Trump presidency's new border policies. Some members of Congress went down to see what was going on in Guantanamo Bay, where some of the most serious criminal aliens are being taken by the Trump administration. One of those members, one of our good friends here at the show, Congressman Abe Hamadeh from the great state of Arizona. He joins us right now. Congressman, good to have you back on.
Always good to be with you, John.
All right. Tell us what you saw down in Guantanamo Bay. It seems like it's a real deal now, right?
Absolutely. They're just getting started, John. So I was down there with the operations and to see the joint military plus ICE involvement with it. So when I was down there, it was kind of interesting, John, to put a perspective for your viewers. There's two locations where we're housing illegal immigrants down there. So one of them is the higher threat illegal immigrants that, these are the ones who've committed more serious felonies, that they've been put in a prison facility that's similar to what people think of at Guantanamo Bay. The other one is for low-level offenses typically, and that one's a more Tet style. And they want to ramp it up to eventually have 30,000 illegal immigrants there because ICE is at capacity pretty much right now. So it's a slow start right now because when I was there, they had about 20 of the high-threat illegal immigrants, and then they had about 70 of the low-level threats. But they're just getting started and ramping up. But I was assured that they're going to be successful in this mission.
Yeah.
Congressman, I know it's varied depending on the person and the crime, but is there an average amount of time that one of these people is at Gitmo before they are processed out and sent back home?
Yeah, so the longest period of time that they currently have been doing has been 2 weeks. They're trying to reduce that from 2 weeks to 48 hours. And for the demographics, just so your viewers are aware, they're only housing men currently right now at that facility. I think that's how it's going to remain as well.
Yeah. Congressman, you delivered on a promise. I think you first mentioned on this show not too long ago that you were going to introduce legislation, the Vote Only in English Act. You actually got it introduced. Tell us a little bit about it, what popularity is. By the way, today, very popular poll showing that English is the official language, winning with a 2/3, 3/4 of Americans. But tell us why you did this and what it does.
Absolutely. I did this after President Trump signed the executive order mandating that English is the official language of the United States, John and Amanda. And my Vote Act is common sense. It's that any federal election requires it to only be conducted in English. And it's common sense. I mean, you have to learn and read and write English in order to become a citizen. So if that's the requirement to become a U.S. citizen, that means they should surely be able to vote in English as well. And I saw that poll too, John. And I think once people are explained that in order to become a citizen, you have to learn English, the numbers for allowing or mandating that you can only vote in English will go even higher. But it's more popular than not. And I do think right now we have a lot of momentum on our side to make sure that we have a common standard for our election. So I was proud to introduce that legislation. I know it's going to be key in order to get election integrity. I get suspicious of those who are against such a bill because I'm the son of immigrants, believe me, and I understand how precious it is to become an American citizen like my parents did, and they were so proud to be able to speak the language and integrate and assimilate into our country. And I think that's exactly what the bill is intended on doing.
Congressman, I believe it was Bloomberg who yesterday was reporting that border crossings are down 99%, and there are a number of Border Patrol agents and sectors along the border that have been some of the worst who are saying we're literally seeing 0 people on average a day now. For those Border Patrol agents, I know there's a backlog of work to do because they were so busy processing under the Biden administration, but what are their day-to-day activities now that border crossings are down so much?
I think they're reinforcing so much of the fencing. And I've had a lot of colleagues that were actually down in Arizona last weekend looking at the joint military as well as Border Patrol set up for security purposes. Right now, we can't let up. We can never allow a situation that happened over the last 4 years under Biden happen again. Because when I was down there during the Biden administration at the border, I would literally see hundreds of people lined up waiting to cross our southern border and waiting to get on those buses. And Border Patrol, unfortunately, at that time they were basically travel agents. It was really sad to see our country being destroyed like that. But right now, they're reinforcing the southern border, adding new technology, adding fences. I know the military, they're sending an additional number of troops down there. I just got a good briefing on that. So Arizona is relieved to finally know that our border is secure. And look how quickly it happened. I think that's, the media was gaslighting us for so long, saying it wasn't an invasion. And if you called it an invasion, that was a racist word to use. And when quite literally what I witnessed was an invasion. And remember, these weren't just poor people coming. I saw people from Asia, from Africa, from Europe. Everybody was flocking into the United States. They saw that as their golden opportunity under Joe Biden. But right now, everybody recognized that President Trump meant business when he says our border is going to be secure. We're going to enforce our laws, and our Border Patrol is doing just that. They joined the Border Patrol to protect the homeland, and they're finally doing their jobs that they signed up for.
No doubt about it, sir. Before you served in Congress, you served in our military. There's also progress, not just at the border, but in the fight against terrorism after a long sort of lull of inaction by the Biden administration. Houthis, Hamas, Hezbollah, you'd like to see even more aggressive action in the months ahead, right?
Oh, absolutely. We always have to worry about the Iranian proxy groups, John. We know that Iran's biggest strength is in those proxy groups, and that's why they're capable of hitting targets in South America, for instance, and our allies in the Middle East. But luckily, Israel has done such a great job at decapitating Hezbollah's leadership in Lebanon. Now Lebanon has a new president and leadership. And we got to make sure that the Lebanese armed forces are bolstered enough to take on the Hezbollah threat. But the Houthis are still the biggest challenge, I believe. And the biggest disaster that Joe Biden did under his term was stopping the Saudis from conducting their aerial campaign against the Houthis. The Saudis understand their neighbors better than we do. They were taking care of business on their own. And Joe Biden, when he took office, he delisted them as a terrorist organization while we were still getting missiles fired at our assets in the Middle East from the Houthis. And then coupled with that, it really created a situation of danger. And now they're targeting ships in the Red Sea. So the Houthi situation is really concerning to me. And that's why I've introduced legislation as well to go up to extend what President Trump did by relisting them as a terrorist organization, but adding additional sanctions on them as well to cut off their financial network.
Congressman, before we let you go, President Trump has always been very, very strong on his rhetoric towards Iran. Not just his rhetoric, but his actions too, because in his first administration, he effectively leveled them financially. But now you've got Iran's president who is out there saying that we're not going to negotiate. You can do I think he said you can do whatever the hell you want. Did he really think that through? Because I think that it could get pretty nasty if President Trump does whatever he wants.
Well, President Trump, he's the one who took out Qasem Soleimani. So I'm sure they remember what happened there.
Exactly.
But the Middle East, President Trump has a good grasp of what's going on. And that's why he's doing such an effective job with all different stakeholders and regional partners over there. Iran, though, I am concerned. They're trying to exert influence into Syria right now, given all the chaos that's happening with this new president and the transition that's happening. But also, they're really trying to create upheaval in Jordan as well. because since there's such a big Palestinian population within Jordan, they're trying to create chaos there because they lost a significant foothold in Lebanon with Hezbollah, and now with the new Syrian president, they no longer have direct access. So they're in an interesting spot. But President Trump, he knows he means what he says, and he's going to get the job done. So they better be careful on some of the rhetoric that they're using.
Are you confident a Russia deal could be around the corner? Russia-Ukraine, is it looking better for you?
Well, I saw that Marco Rubio is in Saudi Arabia, and it's interesting to see how quickly Ukraine is changing their tune versus that when they came to the White House the other week. Everybody wants peace in Europe right now, so I hope there's a resolution. And President Trump, I think with his direct and aggressive behavior with how he dealt with Zelensky's disrespecting the United States in the Oval Office, I think that really put Europe on notice that they have to take action. And now Zelensky's got the memo, and that's why you see them going to our partners like Saudi Arabia, and you see them both coming to the table finally. So I do see a resolution coming in within weeks and months.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. Sir, as always, such a great opportunity to talk with you. You're always out in the field doing something for the American people, whether it's Gitmo, Arizona. Great time to have you on the show today. Thanks so much.
Thank you, John, Amanda.
Yeah, I appreciate you so much. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll talk more about Iran and what President Trump can do to counter that country in the Middle East. Stay with us.
Welcome back, everybody. I want to touch on something that we flicked at before we went into commercial, before we head into some of the other news of the day that I want to stick to before we head out for the evening, and that is the fact that Russia and Iran on Friday are going to be heading to Beijing to discuss nuclear. To be a fly on the wall. What do you anticipate is going to transpire?
I think this is a signal that Russia is trying to do, and China both trying to negotiate with Trump through a proxy, meaning if we can bring Iran under our control and get you to a place you feel comfortable, sir, you back off the tariffs in China and help us get a deal with Russia and Ukraine. So I think this is some of that four-dimensional chess we're going on. Otherwise, there'd be no reason to do it at this moment. I also think what Congressman Hamadeh said is really important. Decapitation of the Iranian proxies is really important financially, militarily. And there's a lot of concern that Iran, which lost control of Syria a couple of months ago, is now doing some bad things again.
Yeah, well, Iran doing some bad things again.
Inside
Shocking.
Syria,
and meddling in other nations with proxy groups. Go figure.
That's it.
Okay, the EPA, Lee Zeldin, the administrator, said a whole lot of this stuff is going away.
The underpinnings of the Green New Deal completely were gutted today. 22 regulations, including the initial, which is the holy grail of the climate movement, the endangerment finding that greenhouse gases hurt public health. There's a big question about whether that's true. We had an amazing story this morning showing that they were talking about politics, not science, as they were implementing this during the Obama years. WOTUS, the Waters of the USA, which made puddles on farmers' land regulatable, gone. This is the single largest regulatory rollback in a single day that I've ever seen in my career. And I think the markets and the economy are going to get a jolt from this. There'll be court litigation, but this is a big deal.
Yeah. And speaking of Irishmen, Patrick Morrisey, the former Attorney General of West Virginia, now Governor of West Virginia, was one of the first people who brought the WOTUS story to us, and now it looks like Lee Zeldin has taken the mantle from him.
And that ruling that he got
West Virginia
is
EPA.
West Virginia versus EPA, followed by the Chevron doctrine. So basically,
Local
none of
right.
these things that Obama and Biden did on climate change were ever authorized by Congress, which means they're probably on their face. The courts may look very negatively at any lawsuits. This could be a big win. Lee Zeldin is a game changer. You know that.
Absolutely.
Every day he's making a difference.
Okay. Justice Department looking to take the Mahmoud Khalil case out of New York and take it somewhere else. You think that's because they're worried about sympathy in New York?
Yeah, venue shopping, I think. Yeah, they accuse the Democrats of doing it, but sometimes they do it too. Yeah, I think that's probably
I'm
right.
interested to get your take on this. As a staunch defender of the First Amendment, freedom of the press, freedom of speech, how do you feel about his activities on campus? And
being able to protest and say the things he did are fine. The second he tried to create a hostile environment for other students, that was what crosses the line. We'll have to look at the specific evidence. I haven't looked at the video evidence, but yeah, listen, protests are fine, long as they don't go into two things: supporting terrorism, or creating a hostile environment for other people. So if he avoided that, he should probably get off. And if he did, there's a reason he's being deported, probably.
All right, quickly before we head out, Greenland, the results from their election, looks like President Trump's talks about acquiring Greenland played into the results a little bit.
Yeah, so the guy who wins is a center-right guy, but he's not a Trump guy, but he believes in breaking away from Denmark, which plays right into Donald Trump's annexation.
Exactly.
So Trump wins even when the guy opposes him. It's just kind of a funny thing how this works.
Yeah, well, people who oppose Donald Trump, he's kind of winning, because of their opposing him.
Yeah.
Was that Abe Hamadeh that was saying tonight, or maybe Congressman Stutzman was saying, it's
Yeah.
amazing the things that that Democrats will
Steve
defend.
Moore said
just
today in my
because they
podcast, don't bet against a guy. I did. I keep losing.
Absolutely.
Don't do it.
All right, everybody, that's it for us tonight, but we will see you back here at 6 p.m. Eastern here on Real America's Voice. Grant Stinchfield is up next.